Welcome to episode 2 of MoneySmart. We're here with Junayd. Thank you very much for joining us.
No problem, guys.
Would you like to introduce yourself then?
My name's Junayd. I'm Mavasi's older brother. I'm 25. I'm currently on a graduate scheme in a tech company as a project manager, moving into a business manager role. University, I studied at uni. I did law at undergraduate with business. Then I did a master's in international business. So I probably can give a few tips for what younger people, the journey they're going to go through, because I've more or less in the last few years I've just finished it.
How did you find that degree? Was it quite difficult? Was it long or?
I think I didn't find it particularly difficult. Law was obviously a lot of reading, very analytical. It did have its hard parts, but when you're at uni, you kind of know yourself and how to study best and find the study kind of technique that suits you. So for me, I find that probably at university, not at school. So yeah, it was just about putting the work in, and that was it really.
Do you recommend law?
Do I recommend law? Yeah, I would recommend law. There's a lot of useful information you pick up in a law degree, I think, just in general. Even if you're not going to go into law, you learn how society works, because every society is built on the law. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. There's a lot of transferable skills as well for other industries. And if you've got a good understanding of the law in the country, it's just good for a personal thing as well. Your rights and things like that. But even forming arguments is fundamental to any job.
How did you find the student life and because you hear a lot of students struggling to pay bills and stuff? How did you manage that?
Managing paying bills. There's facilities out there for students. So obviously when students go to university, your bank will offer certain products for a university student. It might offer people a 0% overdraft. I don't know if you know what an overdraft is. That's basically if you don't have money in your account, you've got an instant facility there where you can still use your card. They won't charge you any interest. For me, it wasn't really an issue. I had part-time jobs at uni, and I don't drink, so a lot of the money students spend their money on is drinking. I did have a little side hustle, which is DJing. I used to earn good money off that, still do. So them sort of things always helped. Plus, probably another thing is as I shared my accommodation with my brother, so we kind of shared costs, which is also a good thing.
Would you recommend that all students at uni get a job, just a part-time job, to help with their bills and whatnot?
Yeah, it can definitely help. I'd recommend it, but don't go. Don't work too much while you're at uni, because you remember that you're only going to be at uni once. So I do say enjoy your time at uni, because before you know it, will all go past. But you can balance it. So do get a job, I'd say. It'll take the pressure off you money wise, but obviously don't do it where it's detrimental to your studying as well. Because you remember, it's about you got to prioritize your time at uni. You need to come out with a good degree, really, because it's a lot of money that you're spending, because you've got to pay that student loan back off when you get into a job and everything. So I'd definitely recommend it.
Did you manage to save a lot of money when you were at uni, or was it just a bit managing bills and everything?
No, didn't save anything at uni. Well, actually, there was a lot of part I probably did, but yeah, I didn't. While I was at uni, my focus wasn't to save money. It was just to survive, and it's a time for investing in yourself, I think. And if you have spare time, maybe even picking up a new hobby while you've got that lot of spare time, because when you finish uni, you come into a job, you're not going to have that time back. So maybe trying to pick up a new skill or whatever while you're at uni, using your spare time wisely is something that, if you're looking back at uni, because I'm now in a job, I can look back at uni and think I had a lot of spare time, but I was doing other things around uni, so that's what I spent a lot of my time doing when I wasn't studying.
How would you say the environment of university different to schools? Because at the moment we feel there's not a lot of financial literacy in private schools and stuff. How would you think that differs? I
think financial literacy. So what are you asking?
So say with like bank accounts and like saving accounts and stuff, like parents usually setting it up, but the child doesn't know what that is. But maybe we think that could be taught at schools.
Yeah, I think definitely from 16 plus, I reckon from sixth form there could be some sort of workshops or something like that. Because I never had that at school, like a workshop kind of thing. Just like how to set up your finances when you go to uni, what you need to worry for, how to budget, maybe shopping, spend, all that kind of stuff. Would be massively helpful, because it's not until obviously you go to uni, start living on your own. It's a big jump, because uni, you're more or less, from like, if we're looking from a study point of view, sixth form, you can't really get away with not doing work, because you're going to have a teacher on your back. You're going to have one of them saying, do X, Y, and Z, or you're going to get suspended or something. Do you see what I mean? So there's always that there. But uni, though, if you don't turn up to your lectures, no one's going to really bother you. They're going to send you a few emails. If you don't, then they'll just kick you off the course.
Left to your own devices.
Exactly, you're left to your own devices. So, but from a money point of view, yeah, it's definitely worthwhile maybe having like informative workshops for younger people at that 16 plus age, who are maybe thinking about either going into the world of work, whether that's apprenticeship or not even, or going to university, and saying these are things you look out for, these things you stay away from, e.g., quick payday loans or something like that. To give the red flags and green flags on how to set up your personal finances up.
Do you have any advice for younger people specifically on how they should save and how they could start saving, and what age do you think is best for them to start saving at and start learning their financial habits?
I think age to start saving at is very subjective. It also depends on your parents, or how much your parents support you, because obviously you guys are in very privileged positions compared to everyone else in society. So I think the best way to answer that is, I think you should probably only look to start saving when you've got some sort of job, because you've got money coming in, then you can then set yourself a budget. Whereas if you're at uni, you probably haven't got a job, or maybe you're between jobs, you can only get work here and there, then you realistically you're looking just to pay your bills and make your way through until you end your studies and you get a full-time job. So I think getting into good habits early is a good one as well, actually. So I actually had a job at school when I was about 17, my first job, and I saved a lot of that purely because I was living at home. You're not really spending much as a kid, really. Your parents are gonna cover most of that. But getting into good habits early is definitely a big one. So getting them behaviours in early to stay disciplined. If you can stay, the earlier you save and the more you can stay disciplined is obviously a good thing, because you're making a safety blanket for yourself. So that's definitely a good thing to do, regardless. Yeah. But I think once you're in, like, you get a part-time job or whatever, figure out how much you need week to week, and then whatever you have left, let's put into savings.
If you were to look at a parent's perspective, say when you're like old and you have kids, how would you look to save for your kids then with like ISAs and stuff?
How I look to save for them?
Yes.
I don't know. It depends what stage of life I'm in, I think. I mean, there's so many different ways I can answer that one. If it was without complicating it, obviously you try and put away. There's different products out there. You've got ISAs, you've got index funds, you've got all them sort of investment instruments there that are long-term kind of savings pot, which are going to be better than what the banks offer you. So they're probably the most safest things to do. You can just pay in however much you can afford into there, and obviously compound interest is a massive thing. So maybe paying, the earlier you start, the more money you can have at the end, because it's just going to keep compounding. So yeah, I'd probably look to do something like that, a long-term kind of compound interest, something that's got good compound interest, is maybe try and get higher than inflation, because inflation is so high at the minute, it's probably going to be difficult to do. But yeah, something like that, that's like a slow burner.
You mentioned inflation there. How do you think the current economic climate is going to impact on people, especially like students and younger people's finances?
Mm-hmm. So it's impacting everyone in some way, shape or form. So, the problem with inflation. So is this more inflation wise, or you're looking at the bigger picture?
The bigger picture, yeah.
So yeah, the bigger picture, there's different ways in there. So obviously you've got your interest rates going up. So, you got interest rates going up. So people who are not on like fixed mortgages and things like that, they're gonna have to pay significantly more. But going back to like students and bills, like turning your heating on is becoming ridiculous for students. But then again, obviously some students, their landlords will cover that. But I know in some cases where landlords have got remote control access to the students' heating, will turn the heating off to keep the bills down because the students aren't paying it. Obviously it's all fixed in the rent. But yeah, definitely. It's a hard time for everyone, I think. Students wise, it's difficult for them, as I say, heating. But it's not even just heating though; it's the cost of everything gone up for me. It's been I think what we're seeing now is a rise in bills. We're seeing a rise in food prices. If you've got a car, looking at your fuel prices, everything realistically has gone up. So I think it is an incredibly tough time for students, just looking at it from a living cost point of view.
How would you, maybe if you were still at uni, go back a few years, how would you tackle it as just a normal person who maybe is struggling with their finances?
Yeah.
Are there any advice you could give maybe?
It's very difficult. I think, I don't want to say this, but sometimes you have to cut down on your luxuries. What I mean by that is not cut down on the luxuries, but look at ways where you can maybe do it more in a frugal way, or, get the same outcome but cheaper. Like a lot of students like to go out. How can you do that cheaper? Do you see what I mean? Yeah. And you go down them routes. Wherever you're spending, maybe sit down, wherever you're spending the most amount of money, kind of look, how can I still achieve the same sort of outcome, and obviously, but roll my costs back a bit, or can I cut down a night out here and there, because that'll make a big difference for the month or whatnot. And also, maybe don't get some people's living costs are high and they can't do anything about it. So I think my advice to them is try and make more money, or maybe pick up like a part-time job somewhere else, just to get you over them hard periods of time, because the last thing you want to do is like get into debt, because then you could spiral.
I think that ties in quite well to like side hustles. Like, what are your opinions on that, like reselling and stuff? Like, what are your opinions?
Yeah. So me and my twin brother, in our third year of uni, we started reselling. At the time, I was working actually. So whatever money I had, instead of like saving, went into reselling. So that's also a good thing to do. So instead of just saving and putting it in a bank account, invest it in somewhere, or not even invest it, like you might have a passion for something that you can then turn into a business, or just something that's going to keep bringing you money in. It doesn't necessarily have to be something big, but it might have been something you always wanted to do, or maybe you've got a hobby and now you've got a bit of savings behind you. You can kind of take that risk. It doesn't all have to be about making money. It can be like gaining a skill from something that then you can then monetize in the future, so you invest in yourself. So going back to reselling, we were doing things like that, just to help us get by, really. Side hustles wise, obviously we DJ. We've been DJing for years now, and that's always helped us. And when we've kind of fallen short, that's kind of been, okay, we'll start DJing a bit more now, and that'll bring up the shortfall.
If you can like find something that you enjoy that's profitable,
100%,
and with
100%.
someone that you're really close with as well.
Like even anything. What I would say to like anyone is, if there's something you enjoy, develop a skill in it, and then once you've got that skill, you can then monetize it. It doesn't necessarily, don't always think about making money now. Do you see what I mean? Because you're young. When you're young, you can afford to take them risks. You haven't got a family or anything like that. You haven't got big bills or anything yet. So the things that you love now and things that are that you want to do, I'd say take a jump now, try it. What's the worst going to happen? You might lose a couple £100 or even 1,000, up to 1,000, whatever it is. But you can come back from that because you're so young, and it's not a big issue. Like when I was like, I think about how old are you? About, yeah. So when I was about 18, I did a business that didn't go well and lost some money, but I look back and I would do the same thing again, because you learn a lot from your failures. So that was.
Say it's a learning curve and everything, but what do you think in this world now? It's so heavily orientated by like social media and stuff, and there's people who are like selling courses which aren't what they seem like. You see it a lot with like affiliate marketing and stuff. Like, what do you think of them?
I think do your research first. Like there is some good stuff out there, but do your research. You can speak to someone. Let's not just speak about affiliate marketing. Let's speak about all courses in general. If you want to do a course and whatever it is, just do your research. Speak to people who have maybe done the course. Don't just go off what they're telling you. And that's kind of a general rule for anything, I'd say.
So, in terms of us as Monito and everything, we've got this saving koala, we've got more products in the pipeline. What do you feel about our product? Do you think it's going to be helpful? Do you think it is a good addition for younger children? Do you think it would be helpful?
I think it is helpful because what it encourages is healthy habits early on. So, you know, maybe I think with the Monito, it's called a koala, isn't it? Yeah. So with the Monito koala, that encourages good behaviour. So like incentivizing. So it doesn't have to be related to like a monetary value, does it really? So you could say to your kids, obviously you've got to get them to buy into this token. That's the thing. Yeah. You've got to say this. The parents got to put in your kid's head that this token's got some value. Or kids just, you know, they're not going to listen. It's not little kids are like, yeah, exactly. They'll probably just throw it or something. So it's definitely, so if maybe like parents can use it at home, say, yeah, if you do the chores or whatnot, or a small chore here, or if you clean your room, do your bed, something like that, we're going to give you one of these chips in the koala. And at the end of the week, the chips in the koala could equal maybe, I'm not sure, a treat for their child or something. But that's obviously teaching them that for them to get things, they have to be earned. And that's definitely a good trait. The last thing you want is your kid to be, well, for me anyways, I can only speak about myself. Last thing you want to be is for your kid to be entitled and think they can get something for absolutely nothing.
How do you think we could like improve the koala maybe, or do you have any tips on that? Or
improve the koala? Maybe I think the rigidity of it, because I think if a kid gets his hands on them, they're going to snap that in one. They're going to break that. Do you see what I mean?
We're looking to do a book as well. Like, what would your opinions be on that? Like, it would be to specific age groups.
Like a children's book, but it brings the same message and the same lessons that we're looking to pass.
I think you can, but I think what you need to focus on is the behaviours, not so much the money value or economics or anything like that, because you've got to still remember these are very young children you're trying to speak to. Maybe just saying, I'm not sure if your outcome is trying to educate them financially. I would say don't do that, because you might not agree with me, but when they're that age, you don't really want them to be worrying about money or anything to do with the economy. All they need to be doing is, going to school, make sure they're making friends, make sure they're sociable, make sure they're developing the good attributes that you want them to develop, and that's about it, really.
I guess if we can get them to develop the good saving habits alongside, that's a bonus.
Well, I'd take it away from savings. I'd completely disregard money if it was me, and think of what behaviours fuel saving. So saving is, mitigating risk or something. Maybe a behaviour to kind of relate to for children, I'd put again is like earning things first and then building on that and making sensible decision making. And if you can relate it back to that in a fun way, taking money out of it, all they have to do is when they get later on to get a bit of money, they already know them behaviours. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. All they have to do is replicate it to money. So educating them in a way that's completely disregarding money and the economy, but there's key skills you need to managing money.
Definitely, yeah.
That's what I'd say.
Do you have like a role model or anyone that you sort of like look up to that's inspired you in your career to get to this point?
I don't know if I have a career. I'm just a working man. No, I'm joking. There's a few people I look up to. The local lads, you guys probably know, and they're from around Bromsgrove. But, Lewis Morgan and Reese Wabara. So Lewis Morgan is one of the founders of Gymshark. And Reese Wabara is the founder of MDV. So I look up to Lewis particularly because he seems like for the amount of money that man's got, he's quite a humble lad. And I watched a lot of his podcasts and everything. And I think we role models. I think you've got to look someone who's kind of like way above you, but also you can relate to in some sort of way. And because he's not from a similar area and things like that, and he doesn't like paint smoke and mirrors. When you get to my age, I've made a few mistakes and whatever. I'm not saying I'm really old and experienced. I've got loads of learning to do, whatever. I've got loads more mistakes to make, but you can kind of look at him. He's got some humility about him. He's humble in his approach, and for someone who's achieved so much, that's rare. Yeah. He just, for what he's achieved and the way he speaks about business, and he doesn't kind of create smoke and mirrors, is something I look up to.
You mentioned businesses and like work life. How are you finding that at the moment? Because you've just like recently gone into work life. How do you find it like post uni?
Well, before I was at the job I'm at now, which was another graduate job, I worked some very long hours, very long hours. And I've come to this one, it's less hours. But if I was to look back from the transition from uni, because I had a part-time job, it wasn't like a massive transition for me. And because I've always been working throughout uni as well in the summer, I had office jobs while I was at uni as well. So I was always like kind of used to working in an office, getting up early and things like that. But don't get me wrong, it can be a challenge because while I was at uni, I would say I'm more a nocturnal person while I was at uni, being that I used to probably start my revision at about 1 o'clock and I used to go till 8, 9 o'clock, come home, probably used to go to bed at about 12, 1 every day and just repeat the same cycle during like exam periods. But obviously when you leave uni, you can't do that. You have to wake up early. But for me, it was only a couple of days and I was adapted again. It's just getting into a routine, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't too bad for me at all because, as I said, I would understand if it was. I can understand worked with people before where it's been their first full-time job. Obviously, they've struggled because you have to completely get into another routine. So
people, it's more of a popular route these days to maybe not go to uni and go straight into work or do an apprenticeship. Do you know much about that, and would you recommend it compared to uni and how it's worked for you?
Yeah. So at work where I work, we do have a lot of apprentices now. It's kind of big push where I'm working at the minute. Yeah. And so I do have some apprentices I work with and they shadow me and things like that. Definitely a viable route. It's 100%. I'd encourage it. The only caveat to it is if you know what you're doing and you want to go into that field, go do the apprenticeship in it, like 100%, because you're getting a degree, you're getting really good work experience, which is a win-win. Yeah. Whereas if you don't quite know what you want to do, I'd say probably either go take a year out or whatever, or go to uni and pick a degree that kind of open many doors for you. Because when you come to finish uni, you might have more of an idea or you might not have an idea at all. But because you've got that degree behind you, but it's not really, it's not specific to anything. It's more like a general thing, not a general thing. Say it's like economics. Let's take that for an example. That can open a lot of doors into, data analytics, business management, policy, anything like that. That can open doors into. The only thing with apprenticeships is, from what I've seen, is that obviously you've got a very niche degree. They'll give you very niche in that area for that job. They'll give you a degree in that area. Don't get me wrong. If you go to a big company, you can move around, but I think just be careful. But they're 100% really good. Say for like my little brother Vase now, if he knew what he wanted to do in the job role, to say, okay, try and get an apprenticeship in it because you're earning and you're learning, and you also pick up them soft skills, how to work in an environment and everything. Because in a working environment, how to speak to people on a day-to-day basis, how to deal with difficult people as well.
You mentioned it about being a bit restrictive if you don't know what you want to do.
Yeah.
What's your
That's
opinion?
only my opinion, though, remember.
Yeah, what's your opinion on like gap years and stuff? Because many people think that by doing a gap year, you're behind and stuff, but some people have different opinions on what do you think?
No, I don't think you're behind at all if you do a gap year. Maybe I would, if I look back, I might probably do a gap year, but different things drive different people at the end of the day. I know what drives me. But yeah, I'd say, you're not going to be behind, 100% not. Because when you go to uni, you meet so many different people of different ages. If you want to do a gap year, go do a gap year. As long as you've got the means to do it, go to a gap year, I'd say. But obviously it depends, because a lot of people probably are in thinking if they go to uni, they're going to be old. But trust me, none of that matters when you're at uni. You meet so many different people. No one really talks about age at uni, so don't worry about that. And it will give you a bit of life experience as well. So yeah, or even maybe going to work for a year. It doesn't necessarily have to be like going to travel or something. If you're just taking a gap year, maybe to go pick up a full-time normal job anywhere, go and do that. You might then get a taste for what you want to do.
Would you recommend that they go and work? Or would you recommend always go and work, or could you say they could go and just sort of mess around in Australia for a year? Like, would you recommend they go to work? Or
is that a question for you, mate?
No, I'm going straight to uni, but there's people like in the Eurobuzz, there's a guy who's saying he wants to just go away and just go and travel for a year.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. To be fair, I see that's fair enough. Yeah, I know people have done that in the past. I don't think it's made them like disadvantaged them in any way, I think go do that. If you want to do that, like I know people who have done that. As I said, they've gone to Australia, they played cricket for a year. What I'm trying to say is no rush. There's no rush to do it. But if you want to be at a certain point and by a certain age, and you've got like a 5-year plan or whatever it is, and then obviously you need to stick to that. But if you know you're in no hurry or you just want to break from education, that's fair enough as well. Yeah. But you've got to come back then, and you've kind of got to get. That's the only thing I'd say is when you go into after school, when you get into a full-time job, you've got to get, and you want to leave that full-time to go back and study, you've got to get out of that habit again, and you've got to used to studying again. Because when some people leave studying, they probably won't go back. Do you see what I mean? Whereas when you're especially if you're at a big company or anything like that, you're never going to stop learning. It doesn't matter big company, actually, you're never going to stop learning, because as you get higher in a certain field, you're going to need to get professional qualifications.
I guess you're saying that, but we've got to remember as well, we're around quite privileged people who have the actual money to do that. Like some people
100%.
It's different environments and different things. That
and
where you come from.
Exactly, and that's what drives people. Obviously, you're very lucky to even have the opportunities to even to go to university and things like that. And because if you look at like competitive schools around where you guys go to, the university rates, how many pupils go to university, are not going to be as high. I can promise you that. But that comes into a whole different debate of, coming from disadvantaged backgrounds or houses with a lot less, an income or anything like that. So
I feel with like disadvantaged backgrounds and stuff, because we're at like the age where we get work experience and stuff, I feel like there's a lot more opportunities for them, which I feel is right. I feel like if they want to go to like HSBC and stuff, there's a lot more opportunities for them to actually apply for stuff compared to us.
I wouldn't necessarily say there's a lot more opportunity for them, because you remember the way you've got to look at it is, think of a race, yeah? You're starting here, they're starting here. Do you understand me? Yeah, so all they're trying to do is bring the gap smaller. So I understand what it can look like, but in the grand scheme of things, if that wasn't there, they'd be already starting from back here. Because you guys have had top educations and stuff like that. Do you see what I mean? But people like that haven't received that. So it's a massive thing for them to. It's just about bringing them equal, really. And obviously, we live in a world where money fuels a lot of stuff, which is unfortunate, but that's still where the world works, isn't it? So going back to that, I don't think it's a case of they have a lot more opportunities. It's because they might need that step up, because they haven't had that step up from the money that you guys have had invested into you.
Would you say that maybe like the financial education, stuff like that, would be more important for people coming from a less privileged background? Or it's just important? It's important for everybody? Or
I think it's important for everybody, but people from less privileged backgrounds as well. Definitely important for them, but they're going to have different priorities. Yeah. Their priorities are probably going to be what you've got to understand. Let's give you this gap year example now. For a person from a disadvantaged background, whatnot, they might come from a low income household. Their focus is going to be getting a job so they can support the house, to support their parents and whatever. Or even if not support their parents, but they want a bit of be comfortable because they might not have had that growing up. Yeah. Whereas you guys, you could have you've got that freedom there to go and do what you want, go and try different things where they might not have that. You see what I mean? So,
what would you suggest is like the correct mindset to approach like the work life and everything in this like current climate?
Mindset. I'm not really big on mindset, if I'm being honest. I'm just more of a person that if something needs doing, I'll do it kind of thing. And mindset, I guess everything in proportion. Like, don't work too hard, because you've got to think like to take something has to give. Do you see what I mean? So you've got to find a balance in everything. So obviously, if you overwork yourself, it could have an impact on other parts of your life. Maybe think of what your main 3 priorities are in your life, and then just work from there. Try and balance. Everything's a balancing act. Don't work too hard, but I guess sometimes you do have to work hard and put the hours in early on. You've got to understand you're very young, so once you're young, maybe you can work a bit harder for you to get ahead later on in life. Which I encourage that strongly. Like, it depends where you want to be in the next 5-10 years. Obviously, you guys, when you leave uni, you're going to be completely different people. So obviously, you're still developing mentally. Mindset wise, I'd say just everything in balance, really. at your age, your priority is going to be is your exams and getting the best grades, because that's what's going to open doors for you at this age. Not you. You haven't got the experience as much now, so they're really going to spike your grades. And then once you get into uni, start picking up experience here and there.
So in terms of, we asked about a role model. Have you got any maybe quotes that have inspired you or that you live by per se?
Quotes. I don't think I have any quotes, but there's one thing, because I have goals in my life and I know what I need to do to achieve them. So that's kind of, I guess that's my motto in a way. So if you have a goal, do whatever you need to achieve that goal. So for me, it's, taking, working. I can more or less tell with myself if I haven't got to a point, why I haven't got to that point. And it will kind of trickle down to days, a week. So I do put a lot of pressure on myself, which is also a downside to things. So it's also like looking at you like every day, what can I be doing now? What can I be doing here and there to get there? So taking the small steps that'll eventually add up.
Yeah.
So I guess in a nutshell is do the hard work you need to get to where you want to be.
I think you speak about goals, like the last thing to finish on. Have you got any New Year's resolution goals then?
I was asked this recently, actually. A New Year's resolution.
Or is it just keep doing what you're doing?
Because I work so much a lot as it is, I kind of get. I don't really think. I don't think I do. I think just carrying on with what I'm doing, and then I'm confident if I carry on working hard, I'll hopefully get to where I want to be.
Thank you for your time. It's been
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Episode 3 of the MoneySmart podcast.
It's episode 2, mate.
Oh.
You have to do that again.
We can keep that in. We can end it on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's fun. That's fun. All right.